Well, it's good to see everyone tonight. I'm glad you're here. Gwenda and I, we were talking after she got home from work that we think that Wednesday nights are made for coming in from work, sitting down, and not getting back up. So the fact that you're here, it makes me appreciate that greatly. And so thank you for coming tonight. Anyone have a blessing that you'd like to share? Okay. So next Wednesday night, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I always like it in the summertime. Everyone comes into church on Wednesday nights in the summertime going, hey, all right. But that is a blessing. Anybody else have a blessing? Well, yeah, he was commenting on y'all Sunday about making him stay at home. Oh, well, you start, I'll cut you off when it's time. That's right. We have great things to be thankful to the Lord over in our life. And, sometimes y'all saw in the newsletter that Sister Linda Nunnery had passed away last Saturday. And, that seems like I don't know, something to pray about to us, but just look what a blessing it is to her. You think if the Lord stood up tonight and asked in heaven, did anybody have a blessing tonight you'd like to share? Reckon what everybody's saying. Oh my goodness. Everybody there's going to be shouting out the top of their lungs all the goodness of the Lord. We are so thankful. And let's go to Him in prayer as we thank the Lord for His blessings and ask for them once again on our service tonight. Lord, we come to You. Where else would we go? Lord, You have the words of life. You are our life. Lord, I thank You for letting us be here tonight and pray that we would just be able to learn from Your word things that would bring us greater peace and contentment in life. We are thankful for the blessings that we've heard here tonight because they are gifts from Your hand. And for those that we didn't mention, Lord, we still are so thankful to You. We pray that You'd help us to live every single moment of our life so that the whole world would know that we're thankful to You and owe all that we have and are and ever will be to You. And I pray in Jesus' name for these things. Amen. Yeah. Awesome. Good. Man, that is what a joy it is for just the razor edge she's on there for so long and to just be finally seeing the point ahead where she's going to be totally on her own, living life. Thank you for that. Mary Jane wanted me to thank everyone also for your prayers, cards, calls. TH is scheduled to be released a week from today, but he's looking better to me than he's looked in months, and they're helping him. He's gaining some strength, and keep praying for him and Mary Jane. But we're very thankful and that what God's doing, and pray that this next week will even give him more strength. Maybe he'll be back in church again. Well, I tried calling this afternoon, and it just went straight to voicemail. So anyone had an update from Earlene today? Well, and I didn't know if her phone battery had died. She took a nap, but it just went straight to voicemail. So something was. Well, we're all going to call her and tell her to quit doing that, aren't we? Yeah. If I can't nap, we don't want anybody napping. Well, yeah. I don't want to mess that up. Okay, anyone remember what our new study is? Money, money. The kids always used to laugh at me because ABBA had a song when I was in my teenage years. Now it's become popular again. Money, money, money must be funny in a rich man's world. It's all about songs about a woman trying to find a guy that's rich, and finally she just gives up hope and might as well go to Las Vegas and try to win some money because she's not going to marry anybody that's rich. It seems like people are, it's on their mind. About a month ago, there's a sports show called The Pivot, and Odell Beckham Jr. Now, if you're into football, you'll know that name. If you're not, it won't matter. He made the statement that it's hard to live on just $8 million. Okay. Now here's what he went on to say. He said, you get a 5-year contract worth $100 million. He said, you don't get $100 million immediately. That's $60 million because $40 million of it they take in taxes. He said, you're left with $60 million. Now, I'm quoting him. You got to buy a car. You got to buy your mama a house. And that leaves you about $8 million. I'm thinking a car and mama's house is $52 million. And he said, now, how's that going to last you from now on? How's that going to last you from now on? $8 million. I could show him. I could show him how it'd last me from now on. And not only that, but when it's done, I'd have more than $8 million. But, isn't that's just, and people crucified him over saying that. He was serious about it, but it just shows how out of touch some people can get about money. And this, no matter how much money you make, there's always the tendency to say, well, I need a little more. And so whenever you and I, if we ever get to thinking, man, I just need a little more money. Just remember, there's about 7 billion people in this world that'd love to be in your shoes and have what you have. We would love to be in Odell Beckham Jr.'s shoes. Say, I'll show you what I can do with $8 million. But we don't have that much, but just there's billions of people that have far less that they wish they were in our shoes, and they'd show us how well somebody could live on what we have. It's all in perspective. Tonight, what we're going to talk about as far as the biblical perspective of money is a biblical look at debt. And we're going to talk some about debt tonight. According to Experian, they're the ones that do all the credit ratings and all this stuff like that. The average American, now we're talking about the average American has $104,000 of debt. Now that's, car payments, mortgage, that's everything. I thought 104, that's the average? Because man, there's, when you look at the generation like my mom's generation, they don't hardly have any debt. And then baby boomers, they have about half or a little over half that amount of debt. But then it's that next generation right below the baby boomers, they have average about right at $160,000 of debt. And then the people in the young generation in their 20s, they're even at like $35,000. But that's a lot of college loans and stuff like that that they have. So Americans are carrying a lot of debt. Now, this changed some when COVID first hit and they started sending out all those supplemental payments from the government, and people were taking those things and paying off debt. But, you know, I mean, we're out from under COVID and we're ready to spend money, and so the debt's edging back up again. So no doubt, you may have a little bit of debt. Don't know what that might be. But when we look at a biblical look at debt, and hopefully there's no one in here that is in a crunch on this, but if you are, then it's good to know biblical principles and what we need to do about that. So what does the Bible say about debt? All right. Some people want to know does the Bible say that it's a sin to have debt? And by that, they will sometimes take where the Bible verse, and we're going to look at it in a minute, owe no man anything, as to saying that you cannot be in debt at all. I don't know that's not saying you can't have any debt at all. You can't live in our society pretty much and have zero debt. But we're going to look at those verses too in here in just a minute. But I personally don't believe that the Bible teaches that it's a sin to have any debt in your life. And we'll talk a little bit more of that about that later. But what does it say about debt? In Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 7, the Bible says, "The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." That word servant literally means a slave. The borrower is a slave to the lender. Now, what do you think? What are some ideas that could possibly mean that the borrower is a slave to the lender? Well, it means that lender has a say in where a portion of what you have goes.
Whatever that lender says, you have to, if he goes up with interest, I mean, you don't have a choice.
Well, yeah. And that old saying, I owe, so off to work I go. You know, it's not like you have a choice not to go to work, because that lender, he's going to want to come get his pay. He's right to. He's right to expect to receive what we owe to them. Also, we're going to look at Romans chapter 13, and there's some verses here in Romans chapter 13 that are interesting to me, and that's where it says, "Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute," that means taxes to whom taxes, custom to whom custom, or revenue to whom revenue, fear to whom fear, which is also reverence, and honor to whom honor. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. In verse 14 then it says, "But put ye on the Lord Jesus Christ, and make not provision for the flesh to fulfill the lusts thereof." Now, as Paul is talking about there in our debt, he's saying that our debt is far greater than money. Our debt is to love people. And, you know, if you went and borrowed $5 from somebody you really love, you'd want to pay that back. For instance, I had borrowed a little old jackhammer from my brother, and I thought about renting one, but I found out he had one, so I went and borrowed it from him. Well, the old bit in that thing is just worn down to a nub on it, and so I tried to sharpen it up a little bit and made it usable. So I thought, well, since he let me borrow it, I'm going to buy a new bit for it. And when I take it home, it's going to have a brand new bit in it. So, you know, he didn't ask for that. He's not expecting that, but I love him, okay? And so I'm going to put a new bit in his little old hammer. So when we love somebody, it's not, we'd never want to cheat them. We'd never want to renege on them. We want to make sure they're taken care of completely. And isn't that something that Paul's talking about when it comes to us as God's people? That we need to make sure that we don't lack in what any person deserves from us from God's point of view. So if we're due to give them honor, give them honor. If they're due taxes, give them taxes. If they're due revenue, give them revenue. And what this does for the Christian, it X's out the spiritual legality of bankruptcy. Now, I know bankruptcy is legal in the United States, but what is not legal with God is for a Christian not to pay what they owe. They are under obligation. Now, bankruptcy might allow a person to reschedule or restructure payments to where that could, because man, by the way, the number one reason for bankruptcy in America is medical bills. And so we know how that can go. But if we ever get to the idea, and it probably, I hate to say it like this, but it burns me up to see all of these ads on TV about how you can get out of paying your credit card bills. I mean, like I didn't put that stuff on there. Like I didn't buy anything. We need to understand what the biblical perspective of money is. And it starts with debt. Because do you remember that little video we showed last week? The goal is to become content. And it's impossible unless we're living God's way. It's just not going to happen. And we have to follow God's principles. Now, I want to share with you some of the spiritual dangers of debt. Because normally we think about debt as this, man, it's just tough. I hate being in debt. And by the way, I want you to know that I'm not just speaking from the air about this. There was a time that Gwen and I, we were in debt over our head. And nobody would have ever believed how much debt we were in. But there were some principles we put into place. We were diligent to follow those principles and become completely debt-free. So I know what it's like to be in debt. I know what it's like to be out of debt. And I tell you what, to be out of debt feels a whole lot better than being in debt. But there are some spiritual dangers of debt. We think all the spiritual dangers is from having too much money, right? It's those rich people that are harder to get into heaven than the camel through the eye of a needle. But here's some of the dangers. The danger of rich people is that they can get to the point that they never have enough. We talked about that. Some of the richest people in the world just needed a little more money. But also the person under heavy debt can also have this exact same attitude. There's never enough. So it doesn't matter rich or poor, you still fall into the trap of that same level of discontentment. There's never enough. Now, that can cause two things to happen. And you and I need to understand, we just need to understand that when we become discontent, that's showing a lack of faith in God's ability to provide for us. So that's what it's doing. And what the problem is that in my life, when I've been discontent with things, I tended more to blame God or blame other people than I did myself. So here's a couple of here's two things that it can do. Number one, it can cause a person to withhold from God what belongs to him. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in life about giving to the Lord. And here's their response to me. Brother Daniel, I can't afford to give. Now, that was their word. I can't afford to give. Now, what does that mean? That means every penny that's coming in is going out to debts. And because of all these debts, I can't afford to give. You know what I tell them? You can't afford not to. You can't. And there was, I mean, let me just, I don't know how to tell you examples from anything other than all the ways I've failed in life. And I can tell you all the ways I failed and then tell you how faithful God was in showing me. But when we first moved to Oklahoma, I was making very little at that time, and Gwenda had been working up to then, and with both of us working together, we had a comfortable lifestyle. But Allison was born, and we had been convicted from the time we married that whenever we had children, we felt it was God's plan for her to stay home with the children. And so she did. Well, and I'm telling you, it's great because there were so many times we didn't have enough money and didn't know how in the world we were going to pay bills. But one thing that we did is that we always gave God his part first. Before anything else, we gave his part first. Well, that worked on until after I was there in January, and I went and I filed my taxes. Now, y'all don't know anything about ministers and taxes and stuff, but ministers pay 15.2% just in Social Security taxes. And it doesn't matter if you made $200 and that's all you made for the year, you're going to pay taxes on that $200. There's no exemptions, you don't get out of that, you're just going to pay that. And so, man, I wound up with, I don't know what it was, a couple of $1,000 in taxes that I wasn't expecting. Well, we didn't have that. We didn't have $2,000. So I drive down to the bank at my old truck, and I tell the guy, I said, look, I've got to have a loan. I've got to pay these taxes off. He goes out and looks at my old truck. He said, man, that thing, I wouldn't loan you $500 on that old truck, but I'm going to, because I believe you'll pay me back. Well, he did. And so now, although we don't have enough money to make ends meet, and now we're paying a monthly payment, paying off last year's taxes, knowing that I also am going to have to start making monthly payments, paying next year's taxes. Now, there wasn't, I'm not kidding you, there wasn't enough to make ends meet before that. And now here's two payments that we can't make. So I'm talking to the Lord about all this, okay? So here's debt that I can't cover. And so I'm talking with the Lord. I said, Lord, because the money's there, but it's going to him. And so I said, okay, Lord, the only thing I know to do is that I'm going to keep giving you the tithe. I'm going to give you the tithe. But the offering that I've always agreed to give you, I'm going to have to use that to pay these taxes. So that's what I did. We're going to read a verse here in a minute from Malachi talking about how God will rebuke the devourer, because God set the devourer loose on me. And I don't know how we survive the next month, because everything you can imagine that could go wrong did go wrong. And it just looked like we were in a hole. We were spiraling down to the point that just fell on my face. And I say, okay, God, you win. You win. I will do what you have asked me to do. I don't know how I'm going to pay any of this stuff, but I'm going to give you yours first. Now, I kid you not. Back at church there, we had business meeting every month. We I'm sure glad we didn't wait every 3 months, because I couldn't have waited 3 months, but we had it every month. And I don't know what is week, 2 weeks to the next business meeting, but I go in the church house and the chairman of my deacons walks up to me. He says, Brother Dan, the church feels like that they want to give you a raise, and we want to know, would you like to have that raise in money, or would you like for us to pay your taxes? Now, I hadn't said a word to anybody. Nobody knew we were having trouble with these taxes but God. He's the only one. And God just put them on their heart to pay them. And you know what's neat? Except for 2.5 years, in the past 35 years, God's people has paid my taxes. I mean, can you imagine? What would it have been like if I'd been hard-headed against God and said, I'm not doing this. I got to have this money to pay these taxes. I'm not giving that to you. Man, he'd have just left me to my own. And that's the danger. That's the danger of debt, is causing us to withhold from God. Listen to this in Haggai. Haggai chapter 1, verse 3. Then came the word of the Lord by Haggai the prophet, saying, Is it time for you, O ye, to dwell in your sealed houses, and this house, talking about the temple, to lie waste? Now therefore, thus saith the Lord of hosts, Consider your ways. You have sown much and bring in little. You eat, but you have not enough. You drink, but you are not filled with drink. You are clothed, but there is no warmth. He that earneth wages to put into a bag with holes. Now that's what happens to finances when we don't honor God, when we allow debt to become what determines what we give to God. Don't let your debt be your God. Let God be your God. Do what He tells you to do. Do how He leads you. It might not make sense. It probably won't make sense. But did you notice there in Haggai, God is saying, you do all these things, you work hard, you're making money, but it's not enough. And it's not enough because you've neglected my house. In Malachi chapter 3, verse 7, says, Even from the days of your fathers, you are gone away from mine ordinances and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return to you, saith the Lord of hosts. But you said, Where shall we return? Will a man rob God? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, Where will we rob you? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. And prove me now, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be enough to receive it. Now it's funny, when God told them in Malachi, you've neglected my house and you don't have enough. Now He says, when you honor me, what you won't have enough is room to hold all the blessings that I'm going to pour out on you. There won't be enough room for that. So, and then He goes on, He says, And I will rebuke the devourer, verse 11, for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. And all nations shall call you blessed, for you shall be a delightsome land, saith the Lord of hosts. And those verses are dealing with a nation and the blessings on that nation. But God blesses His people for honoring Him. Now, that doesn't mean that God's going to bless with making you rich or making me rich. It means that He's going to bless us by taking care of what we need. He's going to supply. But that's a great danger of having too much debt is that there is a temptation then to withhold from God what belongs to Him. The other danger that can come with a lot of debt is a discontentment with God because God hasn't given us more. And you know, there was a time that I was dissatisfied with what we had, how much we had, and Gwenda and I, we'd talked, and when we were going to form this business in our home, and some of you old timers that's been here a long time, you've heard me tell this story, but a lot of you haven't heard it, and it's pertinent now. You know, what do you do when you don't have enough money? If you're not very wise, you go into debt to make more money. Okay, like I said, if you're not very wise, that's what you do. Well, we had researched a lot of different possibilities that we could me helping her and she at home, and we could run this business home. So one of the things is that I had talked with it was a government agency there in Idabel that we'd provide a service, and they would contract this with them, and it's funny, it was pretty innovative at the time. It was before 911, but it was working in McCurtain County, which is one of the largest counties in the nation, to provide a service to all of the elderly people in the entire county, to where they could instantly contact emergency services if they had an emergency. And so, like I said, it's cutting edge stuff and pretty neat. So they said, yeah, let's go. We're ready. And so when they said, yep, we're ready, I went to purchase all the equipment and all that we'd need to set it up with them. Now, to purchase this equipment, I had to go to the bank and borrow money. Now, I didn't have anything back then at all. So my dad went with me and put some land down as security for the loan. So my brother and I, we go to Indianapolis, Indiana. That's where all this stuff was, where we're going to buy everything. And we book a hotel room, and we're in the hotel that night, and he's going to bed, and I'm just setting up thinking about this. And when I'm sitting there in that hotel room, and in my heart, as clear as I'm talking to you, God says, don't buy this. Don't do this. I thought, I'm just getting cold feet. But I knew it wasn't. I mean, it was clear. Don't do that. I've told you a lot of times, sometimes God won't give you the direction until the last moment. Well, here we are. All that I've done, all this talking, working, preparing, getting the money, everything, I've got the cashier's check in my possession. God's saying, nope, don't do it. You know what the fool does? He disregards the Lord and plows ahead and does what he wants to do. And that's what I did. I buy all this stuff, and now I'm obligated to pay off another loan. Get home to Idabel, man, the next day go up to the agency and say, we're ready to go. I'm sorry, but they cut our funding, and we're not going to be able to do that program. So now I have no income from this thing at all, and I've got to pay it all. So this rocks on for a few months, and I'm saying, Lord, there's not enough money. I can't do this. You're going to have to somehow help me pay off this loan. And I'm like, Lord, you could have one person pay off this loan. It'd be nothing to them. And you know what the Lord had the audacity to tell me and respond to me? Now, I tell you, the Lord can talk to you where you understand it. He said, now it's maybe in my imagination, or he put these words in my imagination, but here's what it was. You dug this hole, you're going to climb your way out. And that's what happened. every inch out. But do you know why God made me do that? Now God has a reason for everything. God did not intend me to make my living at something else. And He made it plain to me, I called you to be a preacher of the gospel. You're to make your living doing your ministry. And by the time I dug my way out, which was years later, because not only did we have to dig out, then we had to pay off all the debt that had happened in that time. That's why I'm telling you, we had a lot of debt. I've never been tempted again to go into anything like that. I guarantee you, I've had a brother, I've had great friends, I've had a mentor that's come to me and say, Brother Dan, man, this is a great opportunity for you to get in, you make a little extra money. And I said, nope, not for me, not for me. God teaches, but I'm telling you that tonight because I want you to see the dangers of debt. It can change the way you think about God. And I made the mistake, and then I wanted to try to blame God for not paying it all. It wasn't God's fault. And if it had helped me, if it had been a benefit to me, yeah, God could have paid it off like that. But nope, God wanted me to learn this lesson as hard as I could possibly learn it so that I'd never be tempted to repeat it again in the future. Anybody have thoughts about that, about the dangers of debt and what it can do to a person spiritually? He is, and He knows the future too. He knows how to guide our path. And Gwen and I have talked about if God had let that business succeed, then it would have been within 6 months. Every bit of my time would have been spent traveling that county, doing that stuff for all those people. Who knows if I would have even stayed in ministry if I got to making a lot of money and I don't know, but God knew. God knew how it had to go down. Okay, well, since there's so many downfalls to debt, now I'm not saying just because a person's in debt they have all these dangers. I'm just saying that the dangers can exist and the temptation can exist. And we need to be wise in understanding that. I heard one of my professors in college talked about owing no man anything. And his idea was that if you have paid all of your bills in a month on time, then you don't owe anybody. I mean, you're caught up on your bills. And so when next month comes around, you pay what you owe, and then for that month, you don't owe anybody. And that might be the best way to look at that. But let's take a minute to talk about getting out of debt. So a lot of this you can read this stuff anywhere. I don't know if you've heard of Dave Ramsey or not. Not long after I'd been here, probably 15, 16 years ago, I taught the Financial Peace book of Dave Ramsey to a Sunday school class at that time. And man, they some of them just jumped on board that, got out of debt, and it's been a great blessing to them ever since. And so this is not my stuff I come up with. You can read this anywhere, but it's some pretty good principles about getting out of debt. My dad's philosophy about money, and this is the only thing he ever told me about money: work hard and save your money. That was it. That was his financial philosophy for the future. It served him well, and it can serve us well also. if you happen to be in debt or you want to have less debt, if you're paying on a home that, and here's something that people think, well, I'm paying this home off, there's nothing I can do about that. I've just got to pay I just got these payments. But there's some things, some few simple tools you can use that, depending on how long this loan is, you can pay it off years early and save tens of thousands of dollars. Now, for instance, and I'm going to try not to get into a bunch of just financial stuff, particulars, but this just came to mind and I wanted to share it. If you were to have a 30-year loan on a home or place and you have a monthly payment, if you divide your payment in half and make a payment every 2 weeks, you'll pay that loan off years in advance and save $50,000, $60,000. And you're wondering, how's that possible, huh? How's? But I'm telling you, you put it down, put it to a calculator and try it out and see. Now here's how that works. Because there are 4 months in the year that have 5 weeks in it. You're making half of a payment every 2 weeks, and over the year, you have made 2 extra payments. And that's why over a 30-year loan, it saves you so much money. Check into it. Your bank might help you set that up. And now, if you're in debt up to your ears, you're probably thinking, man, I can't afford 2 more payments a year. But, if you're looking at the future, the long run, it will pay you tremendously to do that. John Maxwell, I've mentioned him last week. He has a saying, and it's not original to him either, but it's where I heard it. He said, you can play now and pay later, or you can pay now and play later. But you will always pay more when you pay later. Okay, well, all right, enough about that. Let's get back to how to get out of bankruptcy. Now, I don't know if any of you ever tried to lose any weight. Man, that's a pits, isn't it? Is it easy to lose weight? Is it?
They used to work with a woman. She said to lose weight, she's a good thing for her for years. She said all you can eat lettuce leave.
Well, my agri teacher in high school, his philosophy was, you can eat anything you want as long as you work enough to work it off. That's okay. Is it easy to gain weight? All right. Same thing about it's easy to get in debt and hard to get out. But you get out of debt the same way you lose weight. To lose weight, you've either got to eat less or you got to work more. Now, if there's a better way to lose weight, somebody tell me. But other than eating less or working more. And to Ozempic, well, you're eating less. It doesn't matter. You're eating less. To get out of debt, you've either got to spend less or you got to make more, which probably means getting another job somewhere. And we don't have many young kids. If you were in your 20s, I'd say you could afford to have another job if it was going to help you get out of debt. But you're probably not interested in another job, so that means you're going to have to spend less. Brother Gilbert and I, we were talking the other day. Have y'all heard that? You ever heard the statement, a penny saved is a penny earned? I read an article the other day, and it was an awesome article about the whole principle that today a penny saved is 2 pennies earned. Because of when you save money, not only are you saving, and this is kind of weird to think about this. Let's say you go to Walmart and there's something there that's going to cost $100. And you've got $100, you could buy it. You don't necessarily need it, But you do. You buy it for $100. That $100 you could have saved. You get up to the registry. Are you going to pay $100? What's that extra you're going to pay? Okay. So what you go up to Conway and buy something at Walmart for $100, how much sales tax are you going to pay percentage? Okay, let's say 9% you pay in sales tax. If you had just saved that $100, you would just have made 9% profit on it in what you spent in sales tax. Now, what do you have your money invested in that pays you 9% interest? So you see that's what I mean. A penny saved is 2 pennies earned. I mean, if you're not, I hope everybody's got a savings account, because, man, if you don't, you need to start looking heavy at how you can save to get out of debt. So spend less. Now, the way you do that is you make a budget, and you see where every penny's going out. And there's some young people I know. I am trying to get them with everything I can. Look, you need to know how much you're spending on these things that you don't need, because they're spending a lot. And then they wind up, why don't I have more money? But look at where you can spend less. Now, if you got tons of money and you can honor the Lord with it, you don't have to worry about that, because chances are you've already cut all the frivolous spending. Yes, sir, Brother Kenna.
My mother grew up during the Depression years. Money was almost non-existent. And I was kidding her a little bit. She could take 2 nickels and rub them together to the squeal. Some of y'all knew, you've been around folks that went through those times. We've not been there. Never really understood, what our ancestors went through. And that's why they were better savers, or took care of their money better than some of us do today.
Well, they do. Yep. They didn't frivolously just throw money out there. They knew what it meant to not have enough.
They didn't throw nothing away either. When my dad died, I found a piece of PVC pipe. It was that long. I don't know what you could have done with it, but apparently you could have done something with it, because he saved it.
Might need it. Might need that. The first church I pastored, White's Chapel Baptist Church in South Arkansas, there was a lady in there. She was an elderly lady, and her husband had passed away. When he passed away, his net worth was $1.3 million. Would you like to be a millionaire? Okay. My dad, when he was still living, he asked my dad his crew to paint his house. He was paid, so they went over there, and the crew, we always would take our lunch with us, and we'd break, set it somewhere, and eat our lunch, and then get back to work. By the way, if you want to save some money, take your lunch to work and don't buy your lunch. Okay. So they'd take their lunch and they'd sit and eat. Well, the first day they went there, and I won't say his name because you can Google it and then you know what I'm talking about. But he came out and he said, "John L., y'all don't bring your lunch up here." He said, "You come in and you can eat lunch with us tomorrow." And Dad says, "Well, okay, we'll do that." So the next day they don't take, none of them, they don't take their lunch. And at lunchtime he said, "Y'all come on in. We're gonna have lunch." So they go in and sit down, and they have a bowl of hot water and a little stack of saltine crackers. And that's lunch. Dad come on talking about the stingiest man he'd ever met in his life, offered him to eat lunch. That's how you have a net worth of $1.3 million when you die. You don't spend it on anything. Now, he had 2 wells on his place. He had a well down at his barn and a well at his house. But he didn't have pumps on them. He had ropes and buckets. Now this is in the 80s. He was still drawing water up with a bucket. But he wouldn't buy 2 buckets for both wells. He only had 1 bucket that he could carry back and forth. Why do you need 2 buckets when you can carry a bucket back and forth? Now, none of us want to go to that extreme to try and save money. But there's a lot of people that like to be a millionaire, but nobody wants to just be a miser through life and have nothing in order to get there. But if you want to get out of debt, and I don't know if you're in debt, but if you want to get out, then start looking at how to save money, and or how to spend less, and then Dave Ramsey, he's a big deal, and this is what Gwenda and I did. It was a real blessing to us. It's called the debt snowball. Anybody you ever heard of the debt snowball? Okay, a few people have. But a lot of people that have debt, they don't just owe one thing. They've got 2 or 3 credit cards. They've got a car payment, a house payment. They've got, Dave Ramsey doesn't really count a house payment because he doesn't really count appreciating things as debt. They're kind of making you money along, but it feels like debt when you have to pay that payment. But the debt snowball works like this. We took our least debt, the thing we owed the least on, and then we just made minimum payments on everything else, and then everything that we had left over to make a payment on, we paid it on this smallest debt, so that we could get it paid off. And it was a credit card, and we paid it off, and we took the scissors, snip, 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 and we celebrated, man, one debt down. Then you take that money that you were paying on that debt and the money on the next size debt, and you start paying on all of that, and you pay it off. And then you got more money then that comes in on your next size debts. And what that does, and you know, some people advise whatever your highest interest debt is, you want to pay it off first. But sometimes that's your biggest debt, and you don't have any celebrations in there. You don't have any victories. And all of a sudden you can it's kind of like losing weight, you know. You got such a long ways to go, you give up. Say, what's the use? But if you can kind of see some victories along the way, paying these small stuff first, it excites you. It revs you up. Says, man, I'm going to do this. And now when we were doing that, and like I say, I don't know if this applies to a soul, but you may have some kids or grandkids that really need to hear this. We didn't take vacations when we were paying off this debt. We rarely went out to eat anywhere. I mean, we were paying off debt. And when we got debts paid off, well, there's something to, you can have a little fun. You can play then. I just want you to know there is a sacrifice in all of this. There is a discipline to it. But I'm going to guess and say that one of the best feelings you'll have in your life, physically in this world, is when you get that last debt paid off and you're free. Because guess what? You're no longer a slave to the lender then. You're free. Are there any other thoughts? Some of you that maybe have gone through this process, y'all have any ideas or recommendations you'd want to share?
You know, Brother Daniel, if you find a new truck today, they'll go 84 months on it. And you say, let's say it's not a fancy truck, but let's say you buy a 3/4 ton at $60,000. That's your basic truck. You figure the interest you pay on that dude for 7 years.
Well, and that's going to be another lesson, but you brought up a good idea there, Brother Gilbert. Let's say I go buy a new truck tomorrow and I drive it off the lot. How much money have I just lost? Okay. Yeah. Wouldn't it be? Oh, I know. There's so much like that. So why not buy one that's still a very good one, but you're not paying that 20% you're just going to lose. Which you got to, I mean, there are times that I've seen, in fact, this happened a couple of years ago. We were looking and a new vehicle, they were giving so many incentives and money back on them that you could actually buy a new one cheaper than you could buy one that was like a year old that didn't have all those incentives given when it was bought. But, you know, again, you just, if you got plenty of money, you don't have to worry about it. But if you're wanting to get out of debt, you kind of got to be wise. Yes, sir?
You mentioned a while ago that if you have a house mortgage or something like that, they don't really consider that as a big debt or something like that, because you can't, as youngsters getting started, you can't buy a house hardly of any kind without having to acquire some debt.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, none of my kids could. And that's it. Did y'all know that up until 1950, there was only like 10% of all homes were financed? 10%. And now 90% of homes are financed.
Well, a builder told me a square foot, and you think about this, the builder told me this, so he knows a square foot is 250 a square. So you build a 1,000-foot square home, that's not a very big house, 250,000.
Yeah, here's what Dave Ramsey says about buying a house. He says, well, if you're looking for a house, limit yourself to a house that doesn't cost any more than 3 times your yearly salary. Whatever a couple yearly salary is, whatever that is times 3, that's the maximum house they need to buy. Buy more than that, you got too much house.
I had maybe 12 young people at one time. Usually there was one, maybe 2, would stick to the plan, and then they were closing on a home within a year later. The rest, kind of like devil may care. It took discipline, and so few people are disciplined enough to follow the rules.
So then the government came up with a really neat plan. They said, if you can fog a mirror, you can get a loan. You buy a home. You don't have to prove your income, you don't have to prove your assets. Hence the crash of 2008. We're headed there again, folks. I gotta tell you, we're headed there again. It may not be because of loose lending standards, but it's because of the availability of too much credit, too many loans, too many credit cards. It's headed that direction again, guaranteed. You'll see that stock market 40-some thousand points go down to about 10, 15. Because it'll pull out.
Well, that's always a possibility. That's so we'll say that when we talk about investing. What the Bible says about investing.
Be the one cow who will have 10 calves. Those 10 calves will have 10 calves. So we're going to loan you on all those calves that are going to be in the future. Is that what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I missed that illustration somewhere. Oh, yeah. Okay, anything else about debt? Anybody have anything else you want to share?
I think it's important that we try to teach our kids, I think, so many kids just aren't, all they can think about money or the value of it. It's so easy, kids go to college and, there's credit card companies sitting in the lobbies, trying to get them to get a credit card. They'll get them, without their parents knowing it. Before the parents know it, they're in fortunate, but, you know, I think it's important that us as parents, but especially Christian parents, should try to teach their kids about the value of money and the value of giving to the Lord, and the value of, what that means for them.
I agree. That's if it's not taught there, they're going to suffer, and that's one of the purposes behind this study. Because I know that most people in here is not going to have issues with these things, but boy, we really need to teach our kids so maybe they don't have to learn everything the hard way like we did. Oh, they do. Yeah.
It's entitled.
Right. They want new furniture when they first get married. And, man, they didn't see that old chair Gwenda and I had that only had 3 legs and one leg had bricks under it so it wouldn't fall over. Yeah. I mean, but you're right. That's these kids these days, they want to have everything mom and dad's got.
But their parents did that. They had to struggle and suffer. We don't want to see them struggle and suffer. So
Oh, I don't know now. I'd like to see mine suffer.
I didn't know mine either. But, mine don't do it to their children. But I don't know what it is. The guilt thing takes over. So we want them to have everything and more. And so then they become entitled.
Well, and which, I mean, they do. They wind up putting it on a credit card, and I mean, we did everything but threaten mine about getting a credit card. All 4 of them got credit cards, got too much on them, and then had to pay the price of paying them off. But they just had to learn that lesson themselves. It's like they just can't learn by you telling them. I didn't have to do that. They do that. Yeah.
Raised us kids to, save so much, tithes, and then bills, and then if there's anything else, you can spend that out.
Yep.
None of us really listen like what we should have, but we were better off than a lot of them.
We as people go in the same rotation as the country does. Hard times make hard people. Hard people make easy times for the kids. And then those easy kids, that maybe early men have hard times. Hard times make hard people, and it just keeps going.
And it is. It just goes round and around. I guess it's probably just going to continue to. But I think we're getting back around to where it's going to start making some hard people. Yeah. Yep. All right. Thank you for input. We want to have our prayer requests, and I realize if some of you need to go check on your kiddos in the back, I'll excuse you to do that. We want to continue to pray for TH and Mary Jane tonight. Remember.